Right, I'm going to have another go at the old T-34 today. I've got a replacement injector pump off a known running good engine a friend of mine's lent me, so I can rule out if I've got trouble with the injector pump or whether it's injected something else. If I put this on and it starts, I know my pump needs sending away to be rebuilt. If it's the same, I know that I've probably got injector trouble or something more serious, which I'm hoping I haven't. So I'm going to put this one on. It does feel to me like like the rack's stuck. It feels like there's a lot of tension on there and nothing's moving in there. So I'm going to take that lock wire off and just check it out in there before I fit it. Don't want to be putting a pump on that's stuck on max revs and then it starts and blows itself up. And then I'm going to be taking the original one out. So let's get to it. Bolt's looking a little bit crusty. That's not good. That's not good. Coming. Ooh. Not looking that good. With the side plate off, there's bits of corrosion all inside. Now, this top lot there, they all move or should move when you work the throttle. They're not. That isn't good. So we need to see which ones are stuck. If not all of them are stuck, there's no point putting this in there until when we move the throttle that these forks move as well. So let's see how much freeing off they're going to take. One thing I can tell already, compared to the pump that's on it at the minute, is they're all moving when I prime down, so which means the plungers on here aren't that stuck. But I try to rotate the pump by hand and I can't, so I just gently try and turn it over with a Stilson. I don't want to go too mad with this, but it's not looking very good so far. I should definitely be turning over a lot easier than that. Just the rust. Just the rust and the aluminium parting ways. It's not a very nice sound. The reason these ones aren't coming back down is because there's an actual, the spring isn't forcing down on them. So, a closer look. So what you can see, I hope you can see, is there's a gap there. So the spring is actually forcing down on these plungers. So the plunger's being forced up, knocking the piston, which creates the fuel pressure which injects it, and rather than the piston come back down to push against the cam, it's jammed up there, so there's some corrosion inside the cylinder on that injector, if you like. Hence why that's not coming back down, because the spring isn't forcing it back down because it's stuck. So we've got these three here, we've got issues. That one's obviously got issue, look, that's not pressing down. Those four have got issues. That's on cam. That one's working nicely. That one's working nicely. That one's a little stiff, but it's getting there. That one's on cam. Yeah, that's working nicely. Again, pretty good. That's on cam. So somehow we've got to try and mess about with these ones until the spring starts pressing against the cam guide. Right, now, after about an hour of gently working those four up and down with screwdrivers, we've now got every single one, every single plunger going up and down as it should, all 12. Obviously you've got to go through the whole firing order before each one goes up and down. But as you can see, they're all going up and they're returning, which is good. It all seems to be working really, really well. So the next thing is trying to get the rack to work. So obviously when you press the throttle, it should be moving all this, but at the moment it's not. Put a bit of throttle on, there we go, going the whole way now. And with a little bit of revs, still not quite positive with it yet. Basically, all this is doing, when you're doing that, is it, if you can imagine, the minute it's fully opened up, so that'd be throttle flat to the floor. And what these are doing when they're moving round like that on a plate, as you rev it, so when it's fully round like that, what you'll find is there's a circle plate, and there'll be like two holes on it. One's fuel coming in, and then obviously one's fuel coming out. So that would be engine off, then it would start letting a bit of fuel in like that when you press the throttle. Obviously the more you press the throttle, the more these two holes line up. Obviously the more fuel flow, obviously the harder the engine is going to rev. Basically that's what's happening with each individual one of those, is as you're pressing the throttle, it's adjusting the fuel mixture, if you like, the amount of fuel being allowed to go out each individual injector on the pump. So at the minute, with these arms facing fully that way, that would be full throttle. And obviously, if that was in the tank now, it would be absolutely revving its tits off. So if you just imagine now that we're going to turn the throttle down to halfway, so obviously that'd be sort of half fuel throw, so the engine would be doing half revs. And then if we go fully back to there, that would actually be the two fuel plates away from each other, not letting any fuel out of the injectors. So that would be engine off. So fuel would be coming in here through the lift pump, filling obviously this rail up here, but it doesn't let anything through until you start revving. So you can force as much fuel as you like through there. All it's going to do is return out the backside of the pump until it needs it. So I've got spend a few more minutes, probably an hour, just getting this rack to work nice and freely with the arm here, and then we'll swap the pumps over. Okay, right, many hours later, we have now got the throttle, all working beautifully. So now, obviously, I can get this damn thing to focus. You can see it inside the springs. The little tab, I'll try and zoom in on it. That little tab in there, that's basically adjusting the fuel rate into each nozzle. You can see all working nice and free. So that's obviously, zoom out a bit, that's obviously engine off. Obviously that'll be low RPM, and then mid-range, and then flat out, and then obviously off. So now it shouldn't start. Now it might start. Now it'd be getting full throttle, and when it did start, rev flat out, in theory. And when I do that, that should stop it. Because one thing is, if I can get it to start, I need it to stop. Most injection pumps have a secondary lever that actually throws the rack and stops it. T-34, a bit like Mercedes Unimogs, are the same as well. Old Merc pumps, they only add, he stopped it by turning the revs down that much that it stopped the fuel through. On the throttle, there was not another lever. There wasn't like a pull stop lever, all done off the throttle. Who would have thought T-34 and Mercedes-Benz were similar in that area? But they were. Right, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is take the one out of this. Right, now I've got the old pump off, which took a hell of a lot of effort. They're rather heavy, to say the least. Now, I did leave a timing mark. I actually centre dotted it, which corresponds with the engine up there. So what I'm going to try and do now is turn this till I see that centre dot, and then turn this one and mirror the same timing mark on the right degree marker indicator there. So fingers crossed, I should be able to do that. And another way I can tell that it's the right degree is I'll take that side cover off on the original pump, and the pattern of what plungers are up and down should be identical. So then we know that the two timing corresponding marks are the same. Right, so I've took the side cover off the original pump, and I've turned the dial indicator over until my centre dot, which actually matches up to this mark here. Now I've turned the new pump to the same mark. Okay, and I've noticed that obviously when you're looking in the plungers, these two at the back are raised, and exactly the same as this. These to the back are raised, and the rest are like that, which actually looks spot on. So I'm fairly confident. I'll mark that there, and then the timing on the two pumps should be identical, or at least not far off, not enough to not make it start anyway. So I'm going to centre dot that. I'm going to put this horrendously bodged up fuel thing on. That's how it came, by the way. That's someone's handiwork. I'm going to put that on there, fit that pump, and then we shall see with a fuel pump. I'm going to connect this facet up to it, just a ticker pump off a diesel can. So we're going to put clean diesel in it, facet pump that feeds this, so we know we've got good fuel supply to the pump. And fingers crossed, we'll crank it, and well, I need to put the start motor on, that's another small matter. And fingers crossed, it might start, it might not. At this point, I'm 50-50. Right, cover's back on, and we've now got the little timing, come on focus, the timing, whatever you want to call it, mark, which corresponds with this one here of the old pump. So now all I've got to do, focus your damn phone, is fit it on the vehicle. So the two pumps are actually quite different. The number for a start there is totally different to this one. Also the pattern on the back of the pump, look at that one there, and the pattern on the back of this one, there's no squares on this, the other one's got squares on it. Can't see it being an issue. This is actually off a T-55, I believe, so this pump in theory would be set up for more horsepower because the engine is pretty much the same. The fueling will be slightly higher on this, so if anything, we'll give it a fair bit more horsepower, but I don't plan to run it with this pump, so it shouldn't do any damage to the giblets if I don't run it for long and try and get that one mended, if this cures it. So I'm going to struggle it back up. There's a locating dowel or plate that slips in there, which is the same as this one, and I've measured it. They are the same, so fingers crossed it'll just slip straight in. Before I fit it, I'll just show you where the pump sits. So it's bolted down on these little brackets here. This middle one has a little bit of plating to stop the pump moving backwards and forward into the engine. And this collar here is the timing collar. You'll see just faintly there, that's my timing mark that will mark up with the one that I've centre dotted. This collar, when you put the pump in, will actually on a spline come forward on a spring, and then there's a snap ring around there to stop it from popping off. So it's actually quite easy to time, and if you want to change the timing, because on the T-34s they actually had a winter timing and a summer timing, so you actually had to change the timing slightly depending on what time of the year it was, obviously to advance and retard the pump slightly. So we're going to just put it on for now however it was. I think it was in winter mode actually when I did take that top cover off to check all the timing of TDC on number 1, blah 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 blah. I think it is actually set up on winter mode. So seeing as it's snowing outside, winter mode is probably the best thing to go for. Right, not looking forward to this. Time to struggle it on. So bloody heavy. Okay, right, she's all back in. I'm not going to put that on yet because what I'm going to do is double check the timing by going off the flywheel indication and obviously the TDC on number 1 piston under that plate there. But to do that, you actually do need the starter motor on, because the end of the starter motor, which goes on there, is the pointer for the timing. And also, I do need the starter motor to crank the engine over, because it cost... Well, I was turning it over initially on welding gas, and obviously it uses a full bottle of welding gas to start it. We'll probably start it 20 times off a full big bottle of Arga Shield. You're supposed to use compressed air. My local gas supply can't get that for whatever reason, but he can get welding gas, so I just use that because it was easier. Someone's going to tell me now, oh, you can't use that. Oh. Well, it works, so stuff you. But it's expensive, so if I can get the starter motor, which has been reconditioned, for 50 quid, I can't see how you could recondition a T-34 starter motor for £50 if you felt the weight of it, incredibly heavy. I've got some very fancy Odyssey batteries to go on it, 2,200 cranking amp each, so that should be enough to flip the tank over on its axis, I hope, and give it the best chance of starting. So the next thing I'm going to do, Ted keeps whinging at me because he wants to be sat by the fire because it's 8 o'clock at night, but he's going to have to wait a little bit longer, Ted. So I'm going to put this starter motor on, and then I think I shall leave this until tomorrow, where we shall redo the timing, connect the fuel, and then try it. So now let's just get that starter motor fitted. Right, I'm going to try the head cam. So I've got both hands. I'm sorry I'm in full view, which gives it a bit of a poor video quality, but you won't be able to see bugger all otherwise. So I'm going to try and lift that great big heavy starter motor onto there. I wish it was that easy, and I wish there was someone here to help, but there's not, because some people have lives, unfortunately. What I don't want to do is trap my fingers under this thing, because I think that would be the end of the T-34, probably. Right. Okie dokie. Supposed to fit in there somewhere, but you can see the end of the starter motor has this little point, and it's hard to see, but I'll show you in detail, but there's timing degrees all over the back of this flex plate. So that's how you time it. Just got to make sure that that's sat. There's a little, it's not quite sat down at the bottom quite properly. There's a little dowel in the middle, so I need to just push it until that locks in place. But I'll put it on time lapse because I can't actually see because this camera's in my face, so that's annoying. Right, I've got the start motor all bolted back on and wired up. I'm sorry I didn't show you on a time lapse. The old man came in and was talking about solar panels, so I forgot to film it. But it's all on. So now, what you can see here, it's a bit corroded, but you can see that that pointer on the end of the starter motor goes against all those timing marks. Are quite hard to see at the minute on the back of the flex plate. So tomorrow I'm going to turn it to the correct timing marks, check it with the cam on A1 piston, and then check it on there, set it all up, chuck some batteries on, chuck the fuel on, and we'll try it. Comment if you think it's going to work or not. I think it's a bit of a 50-50 myself. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.